Welcome to Brands on Tap, the podcast where we discuss all things brand related.
So whether you're a business owner, industry expert, or simply interested, this podcast is for you.
Hi everyone, welcome back to our podcast. And this week we're going to be talking about all things SEO, GEO, and search in general in 2026 and beyond.
Yeah.
As you can see, it's quite festive in here, so we are doing this during the December period. So we're looking at sort of what we can recommend and what we can kind of conclude from what we've learned over 2025 and how we think it might help you and your business to kind of do some practices, some advice, some tips that hopefully we can kind of cover, which will help your business in 2026. Does that sound about right?
Yeah,
Jess?
that sounds like a great summary. Yeah. So I guess a good place to start is just touching on like how it's affecting SEO currently, AI.
Yeah.
Or whether we need to actually explain a bit about the traditional side of SEO and
Don't think that hurts. Yeah, we can start with that.
like
yeah.
what the core principles are that sort of make successful SEO.
Yeah, that sounds good.
Yeah. So I guess a key one from my point of view would be the actual content on your site being dedicated to search. So we always say about keywords, which I'm sure everyone's heard a lot about. If you haven't, then you should probably get onto that. Yeah, it's making sure that your content's
Google
actually valuable and keyword focused and ultimately going to appear in search engines. So I think making sure the content is keyword focused has always been the case, still is the case.
Sure. Yeah.
So that would be top one for me, is the actual content quality and making sure it's geared to search rather than just sort of your traditional copywriting, which still a lot of people get confused around the sort of difference between standard copywriting, brand content versus SEO content, shall I say.
Okay. In what sense?
In the sense that you can write brilliant brand copy on a website, but that's not necessarily going to translate into actually ranking your website for what it's actually there for, to get the traffic you need. So it's kind of that happy medium, I think we try and do at least, to get that brand voice across, the conversion element, but also actually that you're ranking for the relevant searches. Otherwise, you're just kind of ranking for your brand name quite often, and there's nothing else really beyond that for your service to sort of appeal to the right people that could be looking for your brand and whatever that might be. So that's that main difference there.
That's a good point, actually, you touched on there. Yeah, I think we've had that quite a lot over the last, well, probably even ever since I've been doing websites, since 1963, I think, when I started.
Not long then.
No, not too long. No, it might be 64, actually, I can't remember.
Yeah.
In the sense that, yeah, a lot of clients, I think, perhaps have some misconceptions as to what SEO is in general, what they're trying to achieve with it. Perhaps they haven't thought about it in that much depth, in terms of they've heard someone say it or use the phrase SEO, and we quite often see emails come in and we get clients ask us, can you just SEO my website, or I need SEO, or if we're quoting on a website, we'll quite often get a deliverable as being must be SEO'd or must include SEO. And I think that's almost as broad as saying, you know, I'm looking to build a house and it must be built at some point. And I think there's that breadth there of, okay, we can do that and we can help with SEO and we can help sort your website out, but it's sitting down and coming up with a strategy, which we do for all our clients now anyway, generally, which plays on what you've said, I think, about the content, and the sense that the content needs to come from a purpose of what the website's trying to do. I mean, we're saying website a lot because generally that's what SEO is referring to, but these days it could be, you know, it could stretch as far as being found on social media or found on YouTube. It's all relative, that whatever the keywords and the strategy and the content that you're putting into that content you're sharing, the idea of it is, behind that is that someone is going to find it, or that it's going to be seen, or, you know, there's a purpose to it. And I think, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think what you were saying there makes absolute sense, in that sometimes, you know, clients will provide us with copy that they think is right for a website, and we can't argue with that because they're the experts. 99% of the time they're going to have more informed copy than we would, because they are doing what they do, they're reflecting what they feel and what they do, and ultimately that's what we always encourage all our clients to kind of write about and do on their websites, is say what makes them different, why should someone use them, why not 10 other businesses. that whole sort of the gold in that content is the fact they're saying what that is.
Yeah.
And I think that's really important. We don't lose that. But at the same time, what you were alluding to, I think, unless I'm putting words into your mouth, is that the SEO side of it is much more strategic than that, and it needs to be more calculated, and it always has needed that.
Absolutely.
But there's a balance between doing that and what we've seen, where you can cram a website full of keywords, compared to, you know, basically trying to have a little bit of a middle ground between that kind of nice reflective copy about what the brand's about, who they are, what they deliver, and also being found online. So there's a gap between.
Yeah, that's exactly what you've just articulated much better than I did in my first attempt. So yeah, I think that summarizes it really well. I think kind of just nodding to what you've just said about making sure it's got purpose, I guess that's where that research piece comes in, where you've got to look at actually what keyword opportunity there are. So keyword opportunities there are.
Yeah.
So that comes, I guess that's something that we typically would do right at the start of any website, really.
Definitely. Yeah, and that's difficult because obviously we have got SEO partners as well, which we won't really focus on in this podcast because it's not really relevant to what we're kind of talking about. But it's worth noting that we do partner with various SEO experts at different levels, depending on what the client needs or what we're looking to do, whether it's strategy or implementation, or, you know, things that we'll touch on like backlinks and rich snippets, schema, things like that, to actually implement more to the page than perhaps just the copy alone would do. But yeah, I think you're right. It's that strategy needs to be laid out from the get-go so that we're kind of all on the same page in terms of the client providing us what we need from them, and not wasting their time writing copy we can't use or that they don't really know what they should be trying to say, and then us kind of coaching them and guiding them and helping along the way. And I think generally that's what we've done in certainly the last couple of years, in terms of when we've costed up our time to do copywriting. Sometimes it's taken us time to explain to a client like what that means and the value of that, and they've sort of said, well, we'll write the copy or we'll do it. And I think that's where it's informing them that actually, no, we're not saying we're going to sit down and write all the copy and pretend to be you, but what we do need to do is still interject the copy and help you with the copy and coach you, so that the structure of it and the focus, and like you've just said, the research, the keywords, the titles, the images are all named and tagged correctly, so that that page is going to work as hard as it possibly can to be found. And I guess that we're still very much talking traditional now. Obviously we'll get onto a little bit about SEO in terms of AI and GEO and things like that, but I think traditionally that's kind of where I've found we've had to work quite closely with clients to kind of make that quite clear to them, I think.
Yeah, I think so. I agree. And I think once you've kind of got that content nailed, which, as you've said, always has to kind of be reworked, although we can get given copy which has just been written from a client, say, and we've had to kind of go through, rework it, end up restructuring it, because then that kind of feeds into the actual design of the site. And
excuse the dishwasher.
Slight background turbulence there, but
ambient airport noise.
Going back to that structure of the actual site itself. So that's another core principle of SEO, which is still really important. It fundamentally is. So
that's a good point.
Once you've got all the content actually optimized, it needs to then be put into that site structure, which I'll let you explain in a sec, but the actual semantics of how that page is actually structured, your classic, your H1s, H2s, P tags, all that stuff, that's still really relevant, I would say, from a foundational point of view, when you're sort of setting out what that site's there to do and where the content sits and how it's actually going to do something for that site. So
100%. Yeah, agreed. That's the fundamentals, that what we refer to as like technical SEO, isn't it? So obviously we use tools like Ahrefs and things like that, and SEMrush in the past. You know, Ubersuggest, Neil Patel's tools, all those sorts of things on there. There's loads of options online, and obviously in the last couple of years, AI. Apologies, sounds like someone's sort of dispensing ice now or something. I don't know what's going on back there.
That's what you get for doing a podcast in a bar. Or a pub, shall I say.
No, it's the quirks, as you as you will. Yeah, so I think you're right. We've got to remember that although there's a lot of talk around AI now and being able to cheat things and using tricks and generated content and GEO and all that, which I said we'll get onto, I think you're right in that we're trying to explain the fundamentals still stand,
Yeah.
and there's still a right way and a wrong way. And as you say, somebody that's gone through the research, that's structured their website, which is something we're really passionate about doing. We spend a lot of time from the research creating the sitemap as well for a website so that it's structured correctly, so that all the content's put in the right places, the URLs are consistent, search engines understand where that content sits, what its purpose is and what it's for. And I guess that leads us on to things like adding in schema and rich snippets, so that we basically, it's just a piece of code, which these days, again, the beauty of AI, you can just generate that very quickly on a lot of the AI tools out there. But it's just kind of hand holding those search engines and those AI systems to kind of feed them with what the content of a particular page is related to. So it's not left kind of guessing, is this a recipe? Is this an FAQ? It's that you're actually telling it what that content is. So I think that's only going to help you with the competitive landscape that's out there now, and you've got AI trying to find you and give that person the best results. That's only going to help you along the way.
Yeah.
But I don't think it's going to do everything for you. And I think so many people we speak to sometimes go, just add schema or just add rich snippets and things. And it's like, that's going to fix everything. But I think your points are really valid in that you've got to have everything right from the beginning. You've got to have the keyword focus sound. You've got to have the structure sound. You've got to have your technical SEO right. Your H1 has to be really interesting. So by H1, we're saying the main heading title hierarchically is the most important part.
Yeah.
And then all the H2s, which are the secondary subtitles, they all relate to this topic. So this whole page as a whole has got a real rich purpose to it. And then I guess we could touch on our SEO partners in sense of backlink building and things like that. Do you want to
so
about that a
backlink building, I guess, now we're kind of tapping into the off-page stuff, which ultimately gives, I guess, your search engines that kudos and recognition that your site's a valuable source. So backlinks, digital PR comes into that. Backlink building is something that ultimately is going to help your site, provided that they're quality backlinks, not spammy, low quality, low rated domains, for example. So I guess the main purpose of backlinks is it's better to have more quality backlinks than a load of really low quality ones that actually aren't going to add any value to your website. Also, it's ultimately, I see it as a way of driving relevant traffic to your site as well, which kind of, I feel like more and more people talk about digital PR now with backlink building than they did historically, because it's more quality over quantity.
100%.
You're not sort of just purchasing for a few £100 a load of low quality backlinks to sort of get you there now. It's more about actually having relevant online publications, etc., linking to you.
Yeah.
And on that note, the do follow and no follow links, actually.
Yeah, that's a good point.
So making sure that you can get do follow links wherever possible, which really, without that, you're not really going to be benefiting to the full extent from backlinks.
No.
As a no follow one.
That's good. And then do we want to talk about, briefly cover like what we refer to as premium links and then like more basic links?
Yeah. So that is something that, we are sort of working on for ourselves even. So the way in which I see the sort of more premium links is focusing on those with the highest domain authority. So you kind of have got your more basic ones, which are the lower quality essential links. So it could be anything from sort of directories, local, kind of that local SEO bit as well.
Yeah.
And then a premium link would be getting on a really authoritative site. Quite often, I think people think about, journalist sites, for example, like, I don't know, let's just say The Guardian or things like that. Any kind of links where you're going to be getting huge kudos from, that would be a premium link because they've got such a high authority. Same if you're on the BBC, for example, or anything like that. That being said, they quite often don't do follow, or hardly ever, actually. I think I've hardly ever seen that. So you're kind of benefiting from the traffic levels and the awareness more so than the do follow in that respect. But then that's still a really beneficial backlink, despite it not being a do follow.
Yeah, no, you're right. We've seen that with clients in the past where they've got mention on an article or a journalist page on something as powerful as the BBC, or HubSpot, big brands like that, where they've had a mention, and you've seen the traffic's increased massively from that link, and it's helped the domain authority, and that's probably accounted for, say, hundreds of lesser premium backlinks, which are essentially, in case we haven't clarified that already, I'm not sure we have, are links that have been placed on someone else's website, which when clicked or when seen, search engines, AI searches, etc., can see that you've had that mention on someone else's website, and it helps to build that trust for them to understand how valuable is this content, or how popular is this, or even as far as, again, search engines, looking at social media and looking at YouTube and things like that. If there are mentions or links placed on there, that will also contribute to that backlink authority, if you like. And it's all like a trust building exercise. It's like us inviting hundreds of people into this pub, right? And there's going to be different types of people in here. There's going to be people that no one will talk to. There's going to be people that are local. But if there was a couple of sort of celebrities in here, or people that were much higher up, the authority of them would be much greater than a lot of the other people in here. But yet you could tell somebody, well, we've had hundreds and hundreds of people in here, it's been so busy, but it's only really those couple of high authority people that have got that level of people to come in, or that have drawn those people in. And I think again, it's like a big networking circle, isn't it? It's like going to a networking event and getting success from a couple of conversations, but the majority of the conversations in there you're probably not going to do anything with, or they don't translate into anything, or the fit wasn't quite right. And I think that's exactly, in my opinion, that's exactly how backlinks work, in the sense that you can go out and build loads of them if you want, but it's only really the ones that are going to have the direct relationship with translating for you, or have some effect on someone that's clicking through to actually make that decision. Because I think context is also really important. So we've seen this, like you say, we've seen this where you can get these farms, or you can get people that will build tons and tons of backlinks, but if the context is missing, in that where they're being presented or where they're being shown isn't in the kind of, again, the context, I keep saying context, but of where somebody would then use us, for example, if it was us we were referring to, so our backlink was placed somewhere, they find us, they click on it, if they then aren't in the mindset of actually looking for a creative agency, or they weren't wanting to use us, maybe the article they were reading was something slightly indirect in terms of top 10 examples of the use of purple on a website could be a good example, because we've obviously got a lot of purple on our website. They click through, great, we've got a backlink, they click through, they see us, oh yeah, they've used purple on the website, it's really nice, it's really cool, but they're not necessarily in any way looking for an agency, they're not in any way looking for what we've done. So that backlink, whilst it's a stat, it's not really anything more than that. It's never really going to translate to anything. And I think that's a very crude example, just based on our own experience, our own business. But if you were to put your business into that space, I think you could easily understand how thousands and thousands of mentions or backlinks aren't really going to actually translate directly without the strategy that you've spoken about.
Yeah, agreed. I think it's easy, like, to get a bit caught
Guinness
up
twins
in
today.
Yeah, I know. Cheers to that. So I think it's easy to get caught up in like the vanity metrics sometimes.
Definitely.
Because I mean, quite often, you could get a few websites side by side. One could have like 6,000 backlinks, another could have 1,000 or 3,000, and actually the one with the fewest could actually get the most organic traffic because it's more quality. So the metrics don't always speak to the same result, shall I say, because you can have a lot of backlinks but not have good content, so it's all of these elements that we've just kind of been talking about, which all interplay together to create, I guess, a successful SEO approach, really. So it's having your off-page, on-page technical, all kind of working together. So it's no good having a load of backlinks, but fundamentally your website's structured really poorly, the site speed's really poor, the content's really low quality, everything else fundamentally isn't optimized. So yeah, it's kind of ensuring all of these things are optimized, really. Would you agree?
Of course, yeah. I mean, that's the bread and butter, isn't it? And then there's obviously something we haven't really spoken loads about, but there's the local, and then the national, and then the more sort of national and beyond SEO, where you could literally globally try and reach people, which is a whole different very different strategy, much more expensive, much more
Yeah.
focus required. You probably have to have clusters of implementation and companies you worked with in different areas of the world that try to help you with that sort of local focus to be seen in those areas. But yeah, you've got the whole, if you're a local business, obviously your priority is being found for what you do locally, because you can only serve a certain range,
Yeah.
at which point things like we would recommend, service area pages, things like that, where we're putting up content, we're putting up pages on the website which focus on the areas you service and provide trust and build reputation. Because although that's not what I'm keen to not mention on this podcast, because we've done that in other podcasts and we'll go into it more in others, in terms of what makes a website convert and what makes content convert and social media convert. That those are all kind of probably separate podcasts for 2026.
Yeah.
But the point is very valid nonetheless, in that you're trying to get somebody to go to some content or a location that essentially makes them do something, right? That's what the SEO is for. So someone's searching for an intent, we try to gauge their intent. Is it conversional? Is it informational?
Yeah, really good point. We've not touched on that.
What are they actually looking to try and do? And I think that's where all the strategy stems from. It's not just a case of, we make pillows, let's rank for pillows. Okay, great. Well, that's the bare bones of what you need to do. But then what about your competition? What about the ads that are running for pillows? Are you even going to be seen or found? Are you on page 3? Is your content interesting? Why would someone buy a pillow from you and not all the other companies that make pillows? So I think that's, again, not necessarily what we're trying to highlight in this podcast, but it's something that's crucial and literally falls off what you've just said, in that you can get quite hung up in stats sometimes and think, oh great, we're being found for pillows and people are clicking on us and seeing us.
Yeah.
But actually the conversional rate is very low. You're on page 3 or 4, so you could be found a lot more than you are. You're not doing anything on social media. So you haven't really put all your eggs in one basket, and you haven't really considered the purpose of why you're trying to get your website SEO'd and found. And I think what I'm getting at is that comes down to trust above all else. So then once someone lands on that content, they're going to want to see, right, you found us, great. Now I want to see, why should I use you? Why your pillow's so great? Where's the evidence that you've actually made loads of them? I don't know why I keep saying pillows. I think it's because there's one in front of me.
Yeah, there's lots of pillows in this room,
Locked
so that might be why.
Yeah, I think I just locked onto subliminal pillow messaging.
It's a good comparison, though.
Yeah,
It's an easy one to understand, I think.
Yeah, I think everyone sleeps on pillows, right? Unless you're caveman or something, but I'm not sure there's many of them left.
Hopefully not.
Hopefully not, for their sake.
Yeah. Yeah.
Even if there are, we could go and give them a pillow.
Yeah, true.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's my point, is that it's all very well focusing on the facilitator, which is how I would see SEO. And like I've used the analogy of networking, I'd use that again with this.
Yeah, it's
in
a
that
good
you
one.
can send somebody out to network for you, but they can't change the fundamental of what that business is. And I think that's what's
So
making
true.
someone make the choice, or make someone deciding to use you. The SEO is a facilitator, but you've still got to make sure that the fundamentals are right in order for successful SEO. And I think that's a really pivotal point we should probably make more of, in terms of when people come to us, or when we get emails, or when people misinterpret the fact that I just want SEO, or can you SEO my website? And I think the point is that it's not as simple as just SEOing a website. There are other things to consider here, and there's more important things at play than just getting people to come to your website, essentially.
Yeah, agreed. I think that's a really, really good point. I think my only extra comment would be that, on that note, it just comes back to sort of looking at the conversion value of that. So actually tracking your conversions from organic search and ascertaining whether your efforts in SEO are successful. So that just kind of ties into that. Really, yeah.
What has AI actually changed in SEO?
I think the biggest change is that we've seen tremendous growth in AI platforms. So we're talking LLMs, language learning models, or
Yeah.
large language models.
Whichever you want.
Yeah, one of those two.
Pick one.
Um,
Pick your favourite.
Yeah, so I always get that bit confused with an
I know.
acronyms, trying to remember which way round and
There are
whatever.
a lot of acronyms with AI.
But it's basically, yeah, where we've got our sort of ChatGPTs, Claudes, Copilots, Perplexity, all of these systems out there now, which is another avenue where people are just using, billions of searches are taking place every day, and there's just a new engine really for people to find the information they need, which they were traditionally doing in your Google, Safari, etc. So your sort of more traditional search engine. I think a lot of people sort of now sort of say, oh, is social media a search engine, or is ChatGPT a search engine? And I mean, we've covered that at least the social media side in another episode, but I'm sure that would be another episode in itself about AI being a search engine. But I think there's just new avenues where people now search, and as such, it means that the way in which we need to approach traditional SEO has changed.
Agreed.
Yeah, that's my starting
So
point.
what are those new ways that people search?
So I would say social media is a big one, because people want people first, trustworthy reviews and
Yeah.
content. There's that authenticity element,
Yeah.
which, rather than sort of relying on the likes of Google and sort of keying in best places to eat in my local area, it's actually hearing it from someone directly who isn't a paid promotion, that's just saying it organically because they actually genuinely care about it, rather than just some article that's been effectively SEO ranked to sort of appeal to that search, if you see what I mean. So I feel like there's greater awareness of the fact that the results you do see in Google aren't necessarily always people first. So there's that side. I would say there's probably also the fact that people just do go into the likes of ChatGPT. Sorry, slight disturbance again. Hopefully you can't hear that.
Airplane landing again. Sorry.
Yeah. But the fact that people are just now going to AI when they were traditionally going to
Yeah,
Google.
we've been found a few times on AI lately, haven't we?
Yeah,
Like,
I've had a few inquiries off the back, which is really
Yeah.
good. But
obviously that's much more qualified as well, isn't it? So as we were saying, so it's less of a cold search, which is the real beauty of getting found with AI, whether you like it or hate it, which is another debate entirely. I think you've started to have a conversation with it, and if its conclusion is this is the best fit for you, this is some links I found, there's immediately more qualification there of that content versus just punching something into Google and finding, or certainly how it used to be, finding the person that's paid the most, the business that's paid to have ads, the person that spent the most on SEO to get themselves at the top.
exactly that.
The person that's paid the most, which affects the trust essentially of why you'd click on a link or why you'd see that business as being valuable for you to waste valuable time of yours looking through their website. Obviously waste is probably not the right word. I don't know what I meant by that, but I meant don't waste the time looking through the wrong links, I suppose is what I'm trying to say. Make sure that the content you find is the most relative to you. And I think that's the scary transition we're facing at the moment with things like ChatGPT, where people are having a qualified conversation with it, and it's then saying, as a result, this is the link we found, or this is the most relevant content we think that would help you. And obviously you've then almost had that qualified for you, as opposed to you having to traipse through page 1, page 2 of Google, go through all the links, work out which one's most relative to you. And obviously there is a grey area between that, which we'll probably touch on a little bit later in this, in terms of tracking and how we qualify good SEO and how we qualify GEO and things like that. And I'll let you kind of cover a little bit about that, Jazz, because you're the guru on that.
Apparently.
Self-proclaimed guru. Yeah, there you are. So I think, what I'm trying to say is that adds value to that search for that person. So it immediately, whether it's right or not, we'll find out in a few years' time when people start fully understanding AI. But I think at the moment in this current space, it does add that level of trust, even if it perhaps doesn't always get it right, because we don't fully understand AI yet, and we don't fully understand how to report it yet, as we'll go into. We don't really know, nobody knows a solid strategy as how to get it to perform. All we can do is keep doing all the best principles we've already spoken about, to date at the moment and in this podcast, and make sure that everything we do know that's always worked before is still maintained. I think that's the best thing we can recommend. And then as these new systems kind of start to become more accepted and understood, we can then implement things safely. because at the moment I think it is still quite, we've spoken to quite a few SEOs about this as well, haven't we, and it is quite random in terms of how we're getting a fixed result for anything we're doing with AI.
Yeah, that's a good point.
So that although the people are trusting it, it's whether that result it does give it is actually the best result for it. And I guess we won't know that because we're not seeing the other options that we would see on Google.
Yeah.
So it's a very different way of working, which is quite ironic, isn't it? Because Google was so hell-bent originally on not putting AI in. Because of that, they wanted people to find their own answer and find their own links and do that research themselves. They felt that was the healthy part of what Google was meant to be doing when it first was created, after the fruition of things like Ask Jeeves, which you probably won't even remember, Jazz.
No idea what that is.
You probably weren't asking Jeeves anything, no. It was a little butler that was online that was really cool, that was before Google. Well, probably similar time to Google, actually, but it was more popular than Google, shall we say. And it was just a little butler, and you could just ask him, and he would find things on the internet for you.
Okay, that's interesting.
Yeah.
Bit of a full circle moment.
Google pretty much just came over and burnt his house down and set him on fire, I think, and then took him over.
And that was the end of that.
That was the end of Ask Jeeves, yeah. Google just squashed him very quickly. But yeah, I think that was what it set out to do, was be that almost resourceful encyclopedia, if you like, of results that you could then find your answer to. And now, fast forward to 2025, where we are now, people are relying on that AI to find that result for them. But they don't really understand what it's doing to find it and why it's the best result.
No, that's true. I think there's this, I mean, obviously we're so ingrained in it from an agency level, but even on a personal level, people are obviously using AI. It's this kind of personal touch. I think the qualification process, I think, is such a good point, because it's just negating that very manual process, or what was a very manual process sometimes for people to find the results they need. And now you've got the AI overview, which, you know, like you just said, Google wasn't, well, we thought Google wasn't going to do stuff like that, but here we are. There's a huge AI overview in the top section of any Google result pretty well. So yeah, you kind of, it takes away, I guess, that traffic level to your website, which is the ultimate fact that actually we can anticipate, and it is happening, that website traffic levels from an organic search perspective are reducing, and you are gonna see that increase in the likes of citations in ChatGPT, etc., because that is now a new engine for people, really. So it's making sure that you're sort of getting that visibility in AI overviews, which for the large number of people that are still using Google, which is enormous, that's going to be the first thing that they may see. And then it's all basically compiling that answer for them and sort of introducing kind of where you've got ChatGPT, and we are getting people sort of putting in quite long tail requests, should I say, into these systems. You're sort of seeing that come across, I think, into the likes of Google now, where people are putting in quite specific inquiries, longer tail, more conversational, more specific, and as such then the AI overview comes in to resolve that.
Good point. Yeah, there's positives and negatives with everything, but I think we've seen a lot of positives, as we've spoken about in other podcasts. Other podcasts are available on our website for viewing.
YouTube,
and
Instagram.
Sorry, lost my train of thought. Yeah, we've mentioned in the other podcast about the fact that AI has its benefits. We use it as a tool, and it can help with many things. But there's also, as with everything that's nice in the world, you know, we can't have nice things and always use them properly, can we? That's the problem with humans in general. We always like to break things or cause problems. So there are some negatives with AI, in the sense that obviously, people are abusing it. They are putting content online which is purely AI generated. And that takes us into this kind of like messy middle area, I suppose, of like what constitutes good content anymore, what constitutes lazy content, what's good enough content, what are the penalties for doing that, and is it acceptable for people to just go through now and create blog posts entirely using AI and ChatGPT with no input from themselves, or if it is an input, it's very basic. Is that going to create enough? We don't know. I suppose that's a future question. I'll come back to future Jazz for that one. But
we'll do another episode and report back.
We'll have our have our spacesuits on and stuff, and just be floating around, do it from space or something in the future.
Yeah, You never know.
You never know. Is that going to have long-term detrimental effects, given that it's created by AI and the systems you're trying to please are run by AI? So won't the AI immediately know, there, that's AI content? Okay, at the moment, it's some things are slipping through the net and it's not always picking them up, but it's only going to keep improving. And it can't be that hard for an AI system that's generated content that to know that it's made that content.
Yeah.
And certainly you've been using tools where it's flagging things up that's even human written and
Oh, I
saying,
know.
I think this is AI. And you think, hold on, this is a really grey area here, because
Yeah.
I've written that and it's saying AI.
Yeah, it's really frustrating actually, because you try and write something in a way that it's just, I don't think there's one solid tool out there that's successfully identifying what is and isn't AI content. In the same way, if to your point about AI ranking well in search, if you were to just verbatim take AI and put it in there, I just don't think that there's a solid answer yet for how successful or unsuccessful that is. It's kind of, you ask 10 people, you'd get probably 10 different answers on what they think in terms of AI ranking in search and how much Google recognizes that. And I think it's only something, unfortunately, that we're just going to learn in time with more testing and the more that people understand the software, but it's just going to keep evolving. So it's a really complex one to give an answer on, I
True.
think.
So what is our advice to somebody? Should they be creating content on their website purely with AI? Should they be using it as a tool? Should they be somewhere in the middle? Or should they be trying to still, arguably to stand out and to be different, still trying to write as much of it as they can themselves?
Yeah, we might have different responses to this one. So do you want to, I'll go first and then you can give your opinion after.
Go for it.
So I would say using AI as a sort of idea generation tool, using it to assist with content development is fine, but I would never recommend to anyone to just take what AI gives it and just copy and paste that into any website. I think there's such value, like you've just said, in terms of actually creating your own content, making it unique, making it valuable, not just churning out repeated content, which in time is just going to be more and more AI generated. I think as well, just looking at it from like a brand perspective, I think the more and more people use AI, the less brand voice there is as well, which I know that's completely different to sort of SEO, which we're talking about here.
Really good point.
But I feel like I'm hyper aware of the fact that I can spot when people are using ChatGPT in their social media posts constantly or their website copy. And I think more and more people are becoming like that. And it just takes away that authenticity, the value. And I just think the more and more people churn this AI content out, the more you kind of lose that personal brand touch, which
Yeah, I agree.
where's the differentiation? And I think, like you've just kind of already said, that search engines are going to have to get better really at ascertaining what's AI, what isn't, how are we going to effectively rank content above the rest. So yeah, my advice would be kind of use it to give ideas, but I wouldn't verbatim just copy and paste. It always needs to be your unique input and tweaking, restructuring, applying those core SEO principles, because as much as AI is going to give you a really great idea, I don't think it's something that can just be untouched. It has to be modelled and applied by you to make it successful. What's your thoughts?
I agree. Yeah, I'm just taking what you said, really. Yeah, I think that's all pretty valid. I think too many people, it's going, for me, it's going back to the reason why you're using the AI, and I think that's something that a lot of people are getting lost in at the moment, in terms of a lot of things we're doing as tools and as a kind of solution to a problem, which it quite often is. It's a solution to a problem. If a client says to us, we need a graphic designing or we need a web page designing, yeah, we could use AI and it could create a solution to that problem. But in between that, like everything we've touched on in terms of why and the strategy and the structure, I think the bottom line is people are missing the fact that anyone can use AI tools now. So if that content's come from AI, they can just get that content from AI.
Yeah.
Why do they need to come to our blog? Why do they need to read that on someone else's website?
Yeah.
it was made by AI, so it can just tell them it again without them being on it. So they might have saved 3 hours putting a blog together using AI because they only spent an hour on it, and they could have spent 3. But the value of that content is about 10% what it would have been if they'd written it all themselves, because it wouldn't, none of it would come from AI. It would have come from their opinion, their thoughts, like you've just said, their brand angle. And it harks back to what we were saying earlier about letting clients write their own content. Why do we do that? Well, because they are talking about what they do differently, what reflects them. Why use them? Why would you go to them? If they'd used AI to create that content, AI wouldn't know any of that. It wouldn't know why to use them. It doesn't know them that deeply yet anyway, that it could give you a good example and explanation of why they're so much better than 9 or 10 other competitors, because those 9 or 10 competitors are probably using the same tools, and they're all going to end up with the same content on all their websites. So what do I need on that website or that content to understand why I should use one over the other 9? And I think for me, that's kind of all I would say on it, is that if we're using that logic and rolling that out to, like you say, for blogs and for content, yes, AI has a place, and it could help. If you struggle with grammar, it could help you correct your grammar. If you struggle with structuring your own content, it could help you structure your content. It could help you make it much more organized. It could probably recommend things you could add in. You could tweak it. I think all those things are really good uses of AI, and where it adds its value as a tool. But where you're replacing the effort that you would usually put in, and you're missing those steps, and you're missing the fundamental purpose of what is this blog for, and what am I trying to tell someone here, I think that's where we're going to lose out. And I think it used to be that, you wrote a blog or you wrote content on the internet because you wanted to tell someone something, or you had something to say. It goes right back, doesn't it? I'm loving my analogies today. It goes right back to sort of saying, why would you stand up, I guess, in like a medieval time? Why would you stand up and start shouting above everyone else about something you felt really passionate for if you weren't really passionate about it? And I think if you just stood, really low down and just mumbled what everyone else was mumbling, no one's going to hear you and no one would listen to you. The whole reason you've stood up and shouted and people have listened is because you have got an opinion and it's different. And I think if we're not careful, if like you've just said, if we use AI too much, we become complacent with it, and it becomes the new norm, and it becomes acceptable. And I think the content is just going to suffer online in general, because it will have to refer to other sources for trust and for reference and for verification. But if those other sources are also created by AI, where does that point stop, where it can actually find stuff? At the moment, because it's quite new, I feel like it's in that embryonic stage where it's referring to a lot of human content still, and it's giving people quite a lot of educated and informative content. But if we fast forward to, say, if it keeps going this way to 5 or 10 years, when 80% of the internet is AI content, then I think the value of whatever AI gives us at that point is going to be so much less.
I completely agree.
So much less.
Yeah, I literally was thinking this the other day, that actually it's going to encourage more and more people to actually create their own unique data. When you've got articles that sort of list off stats, you've got like Statistica, which is like a really popular one in like the marketing space, but it's just kind of like, actually, where's that unique element? And I think it's going to encourage people to actually put more effort in the long term, because
I think you're right. I was going to say that. I think it will.
It's kind of encouraging, like it kind of is a bit of laziness. I hate to say it, but it kind of encourages people to skip processes and think, oh, it's okay. Like AI will just sort of gather all these stats I need and these useful resources. But kind of like what you were just saying, back if we rewind to sort of what Google was when it first came about adding value and unique content and people actually having something to say, it reintroduces that full circle thing, I think, that actually you need to bring quality to the table and not just something that AI already knows about 10 times over.
I think you're right. It's almost like it's a revolution in disguise. It's a digital revolution, AI. Other revolutions we've had in the past in humanity, we've been able to see them or feel them, and they've been very tangible.
Yeah.
Or they've been very physical. Now we live in such a digital era. If something like AI was revolutionizing things, which I 100% think it is at the moment, I think it can go a little bit unnoticed by quite a lot of the population in terms of how much of an impact it's going to have. And people are kind of just treading water, just loving life, sort of thinking, oh, we're in a kind of hiatus period now. We can just use AI to cheat things and to trick things and to generate things, or we don't have to do that. But they're forgetting the fact that all the quality and all the content, and certainly from our industry in a creative point of view, all the creative has come from humans and come from putting thought into things. And I think if we lose all that and we skip it all, then yeah, the quality of the content and the creativity of the content and everything is just going to completely suffer. Because everything, like I say, it's currently, that might change, but currently if we look at the facts, everything that AI is doing at the moment and has learnt from is humans. We built the systems learn from content we've put out there. The systems have been generated and evolved from things we've taught them and taught them. And I think they're evolving because we're putting lots of input in them and telling them, no, that's wrong and this is wrong, and eventually we're correcting them. But they'll be the result of all of our input. But I don't see how they're going to surpass it unless, like you say, we sit down and go, no, actually, I want to write an article on something that I want to write, and I want to write it myself.
Yeah.
And my worry is that people will stop wanting to do that.
I think they will.
Because
I think people are already starting to do that.
Yeah, it's the easiest route is just to go down AI. That's the truth.
Yeah.
If you haven't got much time, the easiest route is to just let AI find the facts, generate it. But it's finding the facts from other sources that other people can already find the facts from. So I think that's what we've got to be careful of. Yes, we've ticked the box of there's an article on our website, or we've put, like for us, we put insights up, but we always try and have physical input in them and write about them and add something that we feel personal about to make that insight unique to us.
Yeah.
Even if we do polish it with AI and we do have, like every other business, time constraints and it is beneficial, I think we have to remember that we don't lose the fact that the value is still coming from what we actually think.
I agree.
Why is a good author a good author? Because
I
they've written
know.
something that's completely well thought out and different to other authors, not because they've used AI to create a book.
Yeah, so we're just going to finish off by sort of talking through some sort of practical tips to take you forward into 2026. I feel like we've kind of dived quite deep into sort of core principles of SEO and how AI's shaped the landscape that we're sort of now in today. So yeah, in terms of tips then for 2026 and how people can sort of adapt their existing SEO processes for AI, what would your recommendation be?
I think we need to be aware of what AI is using in terms of why it's presenting results for certain questions and certain things. So there's definitely got to be an element of understanding the logic behind it, which, like we discussed earlier, currently is not an easy answer because I don't know that anyone does actually understand the logic even itself. I think it's still learning so quickly, and these systems are coming out so quickly and they're updating so quickly that if you employ a principle for one in January, February next year, by March or April, it's probably changed again. So I think we'd have to be cautious advising our clients to do anything very specific in that sense. But I think, like you've already touched on, Jazz, it's keeping those core principles sound. So above all else, making sure you've done that research, you've got that structure right on your pages, you've got that content nailed before you're trying to write an article on it, and that you're putting in. I think we went to a marketing and AI event, didn't we, lately? And it was an 80-20 split of make sure that you're putting in 80% of the effort, and the AI is doing the 20% on top. So if that, like we said earlier, if that is helping you, advise you to do something you might have missed, tidying up your grammar, fixing some of the structure, saying actually what keyword are you trying to focus this for? Well, what have you thought about including this, or have you thought about putting some schema in or rich snippets? I think that's where the AI is going to be still really, really useful. And like we said earlier, as a tool, that's going to be invaluable to somebody, but I think it's putting the priority on that 80% still. As my advice is to, in 2026, to make sure you're still considering that 80-20 split.
Yeah, it's a really good idea.
Over to you.
Yeah, I think kind of we briefly mentioned it earlier, this whole GEO thing, which I feel like it's a bit of a buzzword really in terms of generative engine optimization, but like you've already said, and we've touched on a lot in this episode, the core principles of SEO stay the same. But I think when you are doing your SEO research or working with an agency to do that, whatever that might be, I think looking at the longer tail, more niche, conversational and informational terms to rank your content, I think it's sort of gearing it more to question-based search, because that, as I kind of alluded to earlier, that sort of trend on, and I guess the structure of how ChatGPT works in which you feed it, that is kind of influencing the way people search in traditional search engines. So as such, I think keeping an eye on informational, question-based content, and making sure to address that really clearly in dedicated, valuable pieces of content on your site. So I think, look into that for 2026.
That's a good point. Yeah, long tail focus, which is actually not a bad thing. Like we said earlier, there are going to be some benefits to that, because that's going to, 9 times out of 10, that's going to get somebody to somewhere they're looking for much more specifically than, say, if you were looking for, I don't know, marketing agency or web agency, and you just type in marketing agency, web agency. It's a very broad term. If you were looking for something very specific, like I need help with my PPC campaign, or I need help with a WordPress website that isn't performing, you're going to get a lot more specific results back for people that are going to be able to help with that particular problem. Whereas I think the shorter, again, we're talking about it, it's a lazier search, but it's going to be, the lazy search is going to result in you doing a lot more work to find what you're looking for. So I think, I completely agree with that. And then showing that evidence when you get to that search, whether that's on social media, whether that's on a website, whether that's on a landing page, whatever it is, proving at that point that you are worthy of that search, essentially, so that you're not just saying, in that instance, you're not just saying, we can help you with that specific problem. You land, and then it's written very generically. You can see a mile off it's AI. There's no evidence of who you've done it for. There's no proof you've ever done it before. I think that's what people are going to be looking for more and more. And Paul and I did a podcast on AI generated content with imagery, video, things like that. And I think also the skepticism around trusting things at the moment is very dodgy, I would say, for want of a better word. People are very ready to be like, that's AI, that's not real, that's fake. And I think on social media they're seeing things come up and go, I don't trust that, I don't trust that, even to the extent that we've seen it and we've called it out ourselves, and actually it is real, but we've just said, no, it's AI, or no, that looks fake, because people are in that mindset of, I don't want to trust anything at the moment because I don't know what's real and what isn't. So I'm putting my kind of blinkers on, and I'm being a little bit cautious about what I see. And I think that makes it very difficult for people to get through, because people are in that mindset. I don't know where that's going to go, but I think that would be, again, on my advice, that would be something to consider, is if you are putting video content or image content in amongst your SEO, which you should be doing, as we know, it's not purely content based, not purely text and copy, is it? It's got to be rich media as well. Just being mindful that you need to support that with something, so it's not just a video, not just imagery, because people are going to be skeptical about it, I think. So again, that would be my. What about on the measurement side? Have you got any advice on that?
So I think looking just beyond your sort of standard metrics, such as your clicks, I think it all comes down to conversions at the end of the day. So making sure you've got the right tracking infrastructure set up, which, get in touch with us if you need to know how to do that. But
cheap little plug.
Another plug. I think making sure that you actually have got tracking set up in order to ascertain how much traffic you're getting from organic search, and then how much of that is actually qualified into conversions on your site. So I think, looking beyond just standard metrics, but also I think on that note, trying to assess what you can in terms of AI visibility, which is a really grey area. I appreciate there's no solid tool out there to actually measure that effectively at the moment, but there certainly will be in 26, I think, more tools being developed. Ahrefs, I know for a fact, is definitely investing into that, and I think we can expect to see like better tools in terms of AI citations across different platforms. Obviously that's all going to come with a greater cost to your business in order to track that effectively, but I think it's really important to sort of stay ahead of the curve and actually track whatever you can on AI, obviously making sure that it is going to be valuable and not just sort of a tool that isn't very effective. But I think, just looking at the core metrics and not getting lost in sort of the vanity ones that we sort of touched on earlier.
Conversions then, essentially. Conversional stuff using tools like Plausible that are cookieless and things like that, so that you've got that trust in the metrics we are presenting. Although they might not be accounting for all the modern ways people are searching and the methods, I think what we need to make sure is that what we do give people, which we've always been very passionate about, is valuable and is accurate.
Exactly.
Having the basics tracked, like you say, not just simply the amount of visibility, but the results and the effectiveness is absolutely crucial, isn't it?
Because there's one thing getting like a lot of visibility, but it could ultimately just be the wrong type of traffic and it's not actually translating into sales. So I think that
Yeah.
comes back to that really.
And at the same token, if there is something ChatGPT doesn't like or it isn't citing you for, knowing that and highlighting that as soon as possible so that you can fix it, so that you are being seen more and you are being cited, I think is again a no-brainer. You know, it's something that's very easy to kind of implement,
Yeah.
which creates a big impact for your business.
Yeah, agreed.
At very low volume. So what would you advise in terms of advice for GEO and local optimization?
Yeah, for local SEO then, I would say your Google My Business profiles are still really relevant. Having visibility in sort of local directories is still really important. But also you mentioned like location specific pages. That's a great way to sort of tackle local SEO, making sure you're actually ranking for the areas in which you cover as a business. When we're talking about the GEO side of things, I think it really comes down to sort of the nuances of that generative engine search, and the fact that actually we do need to make sure that we're providing value above anything else, but also that it is geared to personal queries. When I say that, I mean more so the behaviour and the fact that people are putting in longer tail keywords. So I think just addressing content based on that, and making sure that it's structured in a human way, almost.
Yeah, 100%.
That would be my tips. Yeah.
Okay, and then essentially measurement-wise, we're saying that things are a bit on ice at the moment in terms of where the next step's going to go with these tools and with these tracking metrics, essentially, which are still a little bit behind the curve in our opinion in terms of how we can effectively recommend things for AI and for AI search. And with so many tools coming out relating to AI and things like that, as we've said earlier, the tools are almost superseding themselves before you've had a chance to understand how they were thinking. So I think that's going to be a little bit of a watch this space in 2026 to understand how we effectively measure that. Would you agree?
I completely agree. I think there's going to be a lot of just having to be hot on what's coming out, which I appreciate is not easy, but it's just having an awareness of what's being released, what's being developed, how are AI functions changing. I think it's the more educated and the more time you can really attribute to sort of learning more and staying ahead of what's getting released, I think the better,
100%.
Really.
Which we're always on top of, so I think we should be fine with that.
We'll be okay.
We're always looking for the next big thing that's coming up. So
yeah.
Is there a sort of finishing line as to how we can beat the algorithm, or is that not really something we can do at this stage?
I think no. What about you?
I think obviously we've touched on a lot of ways in which we can please it and kind of tickle it, if you will, in terms of using the content that we provide and we help clients provide for its search results and for consideration in giving someone that result. But I think at the moment, I'm not, like I said, it's evolving so quickly. I'm not sure that beating it is the right way of approaching that, because I think it's always going to be ahead of you. You're always going to be behind the curve in terms of trying to do the next best thing for it. I think it will have already caught up and had an update or had an override of some trick or nuance as to how you're going to put content in and get found, I think. So like we said earlier, like the whole FAQs thing that was really big before AI, everyone was putting FAQs on every page. It was working really well for Google search, and Google was searching and seeing people that asked those questions on their websites. It was working. It was kind of something that people capitalized on, but so much so that Google had to pull back on it and say, look, this is not working now, because the whole internet's getting saturated with people just putting FAQs on everything that we're only going to honor. I think it was council and government and things like that. So they're only going to keep honouring the results for those types of websites and pull back on the others. Then obviously you had this influx of AI, and I think in between there somewhere, again, that kind of lost its way a bit. And I think it was a prime example of something that is a very temporary win based on a weakness in perhaps how something had updated or how something was currently dealing with that approach. And I think we wouldn't really want to recommend those kinds of things to clients, because we want to be having solid advice, which is what we've already spoken about, of keeping the fundamentals the same, keeping everything right that we've always known, but maybe using these tools in that 20% margin so that we can enhance or help things that we're already doing.
Absolutely. Yeah, I think that's a great bit of advice for 2026. yeah.
And trustworthy, I think, is the key takeaway. Like we've said before, it's making sure that you come across trustworthy. So whatever you're doing, wherever it is, make sure it's authentic and make sure it's trustworthy. And then I think people will far more easily buy into what you're doing and be willing to try and invest or trust your business, because they're seeing so much AI content that they don't really know where to look. That would be my advice anyway.
Yeah, great advice. Yeah.
Cool. So I think that's wrapping up the SEO podcast for
Yeah.
this week, is it?
I think so. Hopefully you've found it useful.
Yeah, hopefully. There's been a lot of little mini sort of divergence in there, but hopefully it's all been related to the same purpose of what we're trying to advise and communicate and help you with. So yeah, hopefully that's been useful, and we'll see you on the next podcast.
Cheers. Bye.